I'm tired. I'm very tired. So I hear that Obado out of Migori has been accused of stealing funds. I hear that Aisha Jumwa out of the coast has been accused of stealing funds. I hear that Babu Owino went and shot somebody out of no good reason and was released. And I don't think he's going to go into jail for that. I hear that Waititu cannot be found after stealing millions and millions of taxpayer money. I hear that we have millionaires walking the streets of Nairobi having stolen COVID funds meant for the wananchi of Kenya. And the question is, when does this ever stop? Will it ever stop? Okay. And I think we have to consider what's actually the problem here. Is it the fact that we have politicians, or is it the fact that we have a weak system? And by weak system, I mean, how is Obado able to divert funds into his accounts? Who's tasked with auditing those funds? Who's tasked with making sure that when we have COVID funds released, that those funds go into the hands of those who need them and not the hands of those who know somebody? So we have a problem. And the problem is really not that a politician got a hold of funds and diverted it into an account somewhere. The problem is that the Kenyan Constitution is useless in trying to get rid of the fact that people can get away with pretty much murder. Because when you look at COVID funds being diverted away from hospitals, being diverted away from COVID patients, you're basically committing murder if somebody could have been saved using those funds. So this is a problem I have with the Kenyan system. You cannot have a system where a governor can withdraw $70 million or 70 million shillings, and there's a whole county government that has no clue how he did that. Okay, so that county government, you have to ask yourself, how do they audit their books? How do they authorize funds? And how do they monitor funds once they've been authorized to be released? Obado or Rasanga or any other governor out of Nyanza or any MP in any part of Kenya should not have full authoritative power to go out and take money, transfer it into account, buy houses, and we discover this a year or two later that some funds were diverted from a given project or from a given activity, and now we're all up in arms crying, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not the way forward. That's actually the way forward for continued inactivity when it comes to real change, when it comes to corruption. The real change that we need is not the change in the human being, because our nature is not going to change overnight. But if we have it ingrained into our constitution, if we have a penalty system that makes it so steep a penalty to steal funds, then and only then will people stop stealing funds without thinking about the consequences. Okay, if we look back 10 years, how many of our politicians have been jailed for stealing $1 million or 1 million shillings? How many of our politicians have been jailed for shooting somebody? Aisha Jumwa is accused of having shot somebody. Babu Owino shot somebody and it's recorded on TV. They get away and they walk the streets because, you know what? Kenya has its owners. Okay. Kenya has its owners, and you and me, trust me, we're not it. We don't own Kenya. We just live there trying to figure out how do we get into those same seats that the Obados and the Aisha Jumwas and the Babu Owinos of this world have. So until our constitution recognizes corruption as a problem, until our constitution recognizes that the penalties have to be so stiff that even the thought of theft should not cross our minds, then we still are going to be talking about this thing next year, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. When we make that penalty so stiff that anybody who's got just a hint of corruption associated with him and they hold a public office, we should immediately ask them to step down, okay, and be suspended from the activities until their names have been cleared. They should not be allowed to go back into those offices until their names are cleared. And while they step down, they're stripped of their power to be able to continue doing what it is that they do. Okay. We make that penalty so stiff such that if they steal 100 million shillings, the penalty will be more than 100 million shillings. Then and only then will it be stiff enough for them to reconsider their actions. Okay. When somebody steals 100 million shillings and you fine him 10 million shillings, that is like you're telling them, yeah, it's fine to go walk away with 90 million shillings, or we got back at a tithe. So that's unacceptable, Kenyans. That's totally unacceptable. And when people talk about it, when we talk of people talking about Wajinga Nyinyi, it is so true that yes, we have Sisi ndo our Wajinga. We vote these people back in every 5 years. We complain about it every 5 years, but we still go back and vote in the very same people who are accused of doing all these monstrosities, all these actions. When somebody steals even 1,000 shillings that belongs to you and me, and then come 2022, you're voting for the same person, definitely they're not the fools, we are. Okay, so as we go into 2022, I want you to really think hard about what it is that we are putting into office, who it is that we're putting into office, what values does this person hold? And beyond that, the question should be of, are they going to enact laws that will prevent similar occurrences each and every time? Because it's not about the person, it's about the laws. Right now, the laws favor those who've taken in your money. If we can find a way, if we can find champions who can actually change that system, and by changing the system, we mean changing the laws that allow these people to get out of jail by posting bail. If I've stolen 100 million, I will have 10 million to post bail. That is not a steep penalty. But if I have 100 million and you tell me that you're going to have to post 120 million in bail, trust me, I'll think twice about taking that 100 million. So let's not joke around with this. Kenya has lost way too much money from different corruption scandals going back to the 1960s. And this is 60 years later, we're still talking about, oh, we have this family and that family controlling most of the Kenyan economy. We need new leaders, we need new leadership. And right now we don't have that. We are still dealing with the dynasties that are controlling these countries for the past 60 years. And those dynasties really do not have your interest in mind. Those dynasties actually have their own interest and the interest of their children. And whatever they do, it's actually just done to solidify the control that they have over you, over your kids' future, over your money, over anything that's going to make them stay on top of that food chain, because that's basically what it is. Kenya is a man-eat-man society. The question is, where do you find yourself in that man-eat-man society pyramid? Are you at the top? Or are you down here and just looking up and wondering how can you also get to be one of those people up at the top who's able to eat and eat and eat, and they never get satisfied? These people have been eating since the 60s. It's not a problem that started 10 years ago. People have been eating since the 60s. There's land taken in the 60s in the hectares, thousands and thousands of hectares back in the 60s. And those actions are still affecting us today. Affecting us today to the extent that if you take your time to just review the difference between our economy and economies that we used to compete with, like South Korea, we're doing really badly. We're doing so badly. Our unemployment rate is ridiculous. At the same time, we have very well-educated young professionals, people who have that ambition and that drive to make a difference in their lives. But you know what? There's an Obado, there's an Aishwa Jumwa, there's a Babu Wino somewhere who's stolen their dreams, okay? $70 million, 70 million shillings is not little money. That's money that could have started an industry. That's money that could have built a school. That's money that could have built a college. That's money that could have built a fruit processing plant. So let's think about what it is that we want as we go into the next election cycle. We have 2 years to make a difference. How we go about spending that next 2 years will be very critical to how well we do as a people. We get very few chances to get it right. 2022 might just be the year we get it right. 2022 might be the year we move away from dynastic politics to politics of who can actually perform, who can actually make a difference, who can actually enact laws that will bring each and every person who's taken our money and put them into committee, put them into Shimalatewa, because that's where they truly belong. They don't belong in regular society. These are people who are eating our future and storing this money and all the time laughing at us because we keep on electing them to office. So think wisely. Let's not be the Wajinga that King Kaka talks about. Let's be the people who tell these politicians who steal our futures that Wajinga know how, not us. So let's think about our choices very wisely, regardless of where you are. I talk a lot about Migori because that's where I'm from. I talk about Homa Bay County because that's where I'm from. But this problem is a national problem. So regardless of where you find yourself, I would say think hard about who you support. Do you support them just because of party affiliation? Or do they actually make a difference in terms of the lives of the regular Mwananchi? We have a very long way to go, but we need to at least begin that process of making a difference. We moved from the single party system so that we could have more options as a people. From the multi-party system, we moved into a devolution system, and that's really changed our country for the good. But there's still so much more that we need to do. We need to figure out where all these holes, where the monies that we receive as a nation are being taken out of our system from. Okay, our MCAs, our senators, our governors, our MPs, these are all people who we vote in. We don't vote them in for the fat salaries. And those salaries, that's also another issue for another day. But when I'm paying somebody 1 million Kenyan shillings a month, they have no right to steal 70 million from us. So let's take our votes very seriously. Let's make our voices heard. Let's make corruption the main agenda for 2022. And how do we go about ridding this country of legacy politicians who have made it a career out of finding ways in which to get money from you instead of making money for our economy. Okay, so think hard. That's all I'm going to say today. Let's think hard. And hopefully the next time I have another discussion here, you might have come on board beyond just talking, but actually looking hard and looking around you to see what candidates do we have out there and which candidates should we support as a people, be it the youth. What candidates actually are championing the cause of the youth? What candidates are championing the cause of growing the economy instead of growing their own economy? Look at your current governor, look at your current senator, look at your current MP, your current MCAs. Are they really working for you? Okay, in the time that they've been given since the last election, what have they really achieved? And is it really the type of development that your county should have had? Okay, if the answer is no, go back to the drawing board, start having those discussions in your social forums, start having those discussions at the marketplace, at your churches, wherever it is that you can meet with people. Debate, 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 but at the end of the day, realize that no, we cannot continue going the way we've been going for the past 60 years. Kenya is a very rich country. I have no doubt that it's one of the richest countries in Africa. It's one of the richest country that we could have in the world if they set their policies straight. So let's find out what's the secret recipe for making Kenya shine. We have educated people. Chances are that if you're listening to me, you're an educated person. But education alone is bure if your education doesn't make you a more productive member of society. So I urge you, if you're listening to this and you're a Kenyan who loves your country as much as I love the country, let's really consider what we want to do with our country. Our country has been raped beyond measure. It's been abused beyond measure. And we have billionaires. And you ask yourself, what industries have these billionaires built? What industries has a politician who's been in office for just 5 years built that makes him worth 500 million Kenyan shillings? Okay, politics is not a place to go and make money. So that perception in itself is a perception that we have to find a way to stem. You don't go into politics to make money. Okay, You go into politics with a vision of changing your society. In Kenya, as you all know, the vision for politics is now, I'm going in there to make a name for myself and to also make myself some millions. That's not what it's supposed to be. The first role of a politician, the first role of a statesperson is to have a vision for the country. And that vision has to be translated into a plan for how to grow each and every individual that that person represents. If your objective includes stealing 100 million Kenya shillings, let's make it so hard for you to achieve that objective that you'd think twice about entering politics. I believe with all my heart, if we jail 5, 10 major politicians who've been involved in graft and corruption, people will take note. Right now, we really don't have those big names. I know we have the lady from Western who was jailed, and her family was able to raise close to 800 million Kenya shillings to bail her out. And I like that, okay? Because that fine was steep enough that you'd think twice about doing something similar. But that is just one incident. That is just one incident. What if that would be 20 different incidents involving VIPs, where a VIP who's stolen 100 million gets fined 150 million? A VIP who's stolen 50 million gets fined 80 million shillings. Then we'll open our minds and start saying, hey, we could actually make money from these politicians. And the politicians will then think, oh, I better not do this. But we're not yet there yet. And the reason is because these guys have money and we don't. And as long as we don't have money, they'll continue to pay off the electorate. They'll continue to buy elections. And that's where we have to really wrap our mind and ask ourselves, how do we then compete with somebody who has stolen 700 million Kenya shillings? How do we enable a system that can enable us to compete with somebody who has this treasure chest that will enable him to continue eating and eating and eating and eating? And when they're done, guess what happens? The kids take over. And the kids continue that same cycle of eating and eating and eating. It's tough. It's tough. The dynastic politics of Kenya is so complicated. We are not getting our way around our founding fathers' families because those are the people who own Kenya. But I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about the people in my village, the people who we've elected at the county level, because those are people we can actually target. And if everybody from every county targets those people within their communities who they've tasked with running the county, and the county has not lived up to the expectations, we have to kick them out. We have to kick them out. There's no two ways about this. Kenya is more than a bunch of politicians. Kenya is 45 million people strong, many of who don't realize that this country is so rich. Because you know what? That vision, that beauty, that richness of the country has been vested in a couple few people who have built no industry. Actually, if they have built industry, it's on the backs of the money that's been raised from you as a taxpayer. So you might say, I'm not an employee, I don't pay taxes, they've not taken my money. But the thing is, no, they've taken your money. If you don't have running water, they've taken your money. If your electricity dies at 8 in the evening, they've taken your money. If you find that the roads to your house have potholes that should have been fixed, they took your money, because that's a public good. And that's what your monies are used for. If your schools, your primary schools, your high schools have broken windows, they have no textbooks, they have no computers, they've taken your money. So be serious about your future. Because if you don't take this seriously, we're never going to be able to fix a problem. This is beyond talking about BBI, because we talked about a constitution back and we came up with a wonderful constitution. I personally don't believe that BBI is a solution that we need. We have a constitution in place that is just as good as a BBI constitution. What it fails to do is to have a clause that determines how we go about handling our funds as a nation, how we go about preventing access to those funds by people who should not have access to those funds. Okay, being a governor does not give you free reign on any funds coming into that county. You're just but a steward, somebody tasked with holding those funds until a project is received that is worthy of the funds that have been given to you in custody. So I'm hoping my frustration is coming across to you, but as a people, we can do much better. We have really sharp minds. I've seen the students coming out of Nairobi University, Kenyatta, Jomo Kenyatta, Daystar, USIU, Strathmore. We have the brains. But now we have to connect those brains, those people with the ability to make a change, with the positions that they need to be in to make that change. So that the people who are currently in this position, who really don't know what they're supposed to be doing, go back to being people on the streets, trying to continue figuring out what they need to be doing. They don't need to be in positions of power. Wajinga Sisi, that's what they say. That's what Westerners actually think when they think of us. Trump called nations like ours a shithole nation. And I hate that description because I know it's not true. I'm a Kenyan, first and foremost, even if I live in a different country. We are not a shithole country. We just have shithole politicians. And those shithole politicians are messing up our nation big time. They're messing it so bad, you don't even know where we would have been. Okay, we have a nation. If you ever take the time to just look at our history of our nation, when I first went to Nairobi, sometime in the 80s, the neighborhoods were green, the streets were clean, and look at Nairobi now. It's hustling and bustling, but in the wrong manner. The streets are dirty. The number of people looking for jobs is crazy, ridiculous, and nobody's truly happy to consider themselves a Nairobian anymore. The same applies to Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, Nakuru, wherever you go. We have beautiful cities, but are the people in them truly happy? Are we opening the job opportunities that they need to have? Or are we educating them that in addition to jobs, entrepreneurship is a wonderful, wonderful alternative? So I'll end this here, but I'm hoping that my message is clear, that we need to think outside the box the next time around. Let's not vote for a party. Let's not say I'm voting for somebody because he's in Jubilee or he's in ODM or he's in some other party that every 5 years changes its name. Let's not vote for somebody because he's in the party of Mudavadi or he's in the party of Raila or in the party of Ruto or whoever it is who's going to be head of a party in 2022. Let's look at the character of the people who are running for office. If somebody has a stain of corruption linked to his name, whether it's just a hint of it, think twice, because if he has a hint of corruption before he's in office, think of what he can do once he has the power to actually manage funds in a way that nobody knows how he's actually going to manage them. So, Wajinga Sisi, I'm praying not. I'm praying that you listen to this. I'm praying that it begins a conversation at the national level of what we need to have in a leader, a true leader, somebody who can actually speak his mind, somebody who's ready to call sin by its rightful name, somebody who's ready to call corruption by its rightful name, somebody who walks the walk, somebody who does not just preach water and drink wine. So let's think hard. And I hope that this begins a discussion. And I look forward to talking with you again in the next time my frustration bubbles over. Thanks.